There are moments in life that split your existence into two halves, the before and the after. For me, that moment didn't come with a bang. It didn't come with a fight or a dramatic confrontation. It came with the soft, final click of a hotel door closing behind the two people I trusted most in the world. That single sound, click, was the end of my old life. And the beginning of something much, much darker. Let me take you back to the before. My name is Adrian, and if you had looked at my life 6 months ago, you would have seen a man who had it all. I was the co-founder of a thriving tech startup called Nexus Innovations. We weren't just a company, we were a family. At least, that's what I believed. My partner in this was my best friend since college, Mark. We'd shared dorm rooms, loaned each other money for pizza, and stayed up all night dreaming about the future. We built Nexus from the ground up in my garage. He was the charming face, the one who could sell ice to an Eskimo. I was the quiet one, the architect, the guy who actually built the ice. We balanced each other perfectly. And then there was Sarah. My wife. My high school sweetheart. The woman who believed in me when I had nothing but debt and a half-baked idea. She was my anchor, my safe harbor in a stormy world. When I looked at her, I saw my entire future, a future of stability, love, and happiness. We had just moved into our dream home. It was a beautiful old house with a wraparound porch and a huge oak tree in the backyard where we planned to hang a swing for the kids we hoped to have one day. Life wasn't just good. It was perfect. Picture perfect. And you know what they say about picture perfect things? They're usually hiding a crack right down the middle. The first crack appeared about a month before the click. I was working late, as usual, trying to finalize the code for our latest software update. It was a massive project, a make-or-break deal with a major investor. Mark had been acting strange lately, distracted, short-tempered. He was taking more and more meetings without me, which he explained away as networking. One night, I got a notification. It was a joint bank alert for one of our business accounts. A large withdrawal. A very large withdrawal. I picked up my phone and called him immediately. Mark? Did you authorize a transfer for $50,000 from the dev fund? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a silence that lasted just a second too long. Then he laughed. It was his signature, easygoing laugh. Oh, that. Yeah, man, sorry, I should have told you. It's for a marketing push. A secret weapon. Trust me, Adrian, it's going to pay off tenfold. I was going to surprise you. I hesitated. It was out of procedure, but it was Mark. My brother. Okay, I said, the knot in my stomach loosening slightly. Just, next time, let me know, alright? We're partners. We're brothers, he corrected me. Don't worry about a thing. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. So I buried my doubts deep down and went back to my code. That was my first mistake. I trusted the wrong people. The night of the launch arrived. The new software was ready. We were supposed to meet at a fancy hotel downtown to celebrate with Sarah and Mark's girlfriend, Chloe, before the big investor meeting the next morning. I was running late. A last-minute bug in the code. I told Mark and Sarah to go ahead without me and order the champagne. I'd meet them there in an hour. That hour felt like an eternity. Finally, the bug was fixed. I saved the file, grabbed my jacket, and drove to the hotel, a wave of relief washing over me. This was it. The culmination of years of work. I walked into the hotel lobby. It was all polished marble and soft lighting. I asked the concierge for the restaurant and made my way there. As I walked through the dining area, I didn't see them. I pulled out my phone to text Mark. Hey, where are you guys? I'm at the restaurant. A moment later, my phone buzzed. A message from Mark. We got a better table. Room 317. Come up. We're celebrating in style. Room 317. I smiled. They'd gotten a suite. Classy. I took the elevator up, my heart full of anticipation. The hallway was quiet, lined with identical doors. I found room 317. I raised my hand to knock, but the door was slightly ajar. I could hear soft music playing from inside. With a grin, I pushed the door open, ready to announce my arrival. But the words never left my mouth. They died in my throat. The suite was dimly lit, candles flickering on the coffee table. And there, on the plush sofa, wrapped in each other's arms, were Mark and Sarah. My business partner. My wife. The two pillars of my life. Locked in a kiss that was not friendly. It was intimate. It was passionate. It was a betrayal so deep, so sharp, it felt like a physical knife twisting in my gut. The world didn't just stop. It shattered. The sound of my own heartbeat was deafening in my ears. They hadn't heard me. They pulled apart, whispering and laughing. Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture she always did when she was happy. Happy. With him. I stumbled back, my hand hitting the doorframe. The soft thud made them both freeze. They turned. Their faces. I will never, ever forget the look on their faces. Sarah's eyes went wide with a terror I had never seen before. Mark's face hardened, not with shame, but with a cold, calculated annoyance. Like I was an interruption. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My voice was gone. I just turned and walked away, down that long, quiet hallway, back to the elevator. And behind me, I heard it. The soft, final click of the hotel door closing. That sound wasn't just a door closing. It was the sound of my life, my future, my everything, slamming shut in my face. The aftermath, alone and destroyed. The next 48 hours were a blur of pain. I didn't go home. I couldn't face that house, that bed. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town and just stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just replayed that scene over and over in my head, like a movie I couldn't turn off. When I finally mustered the strength to go home, the house was empty. Sarah was gone. Her clothes, her jewelry, her things, vanished. There was no note. No apology. No explanation. Just a cold, empty space where my wife used to be. But that was just the beginning. The real destruction was yet to come. A few days later, I received a letter from a high-powered law firm. It was a cease and desist order. It informed me that I was being removed as a director and co-founder of Nexus Innovations. The letter cited breach of fiduciary duty and corporate malfeasance. It was signed by Mark. I was stunned. How could he remove me? I owned 50% of the company. I drove to our office, my mind racing. But when I got there, the security code had been changed. I buzzed the intercom, and Mark's assistant answered. Mr. Harrison? I'm sorry, but I have instructions not to let you in, she said, her voice trembling with awkwardness. Let me talk to Mark, I demanded. A moment later, Mark's voice came through the speaker, cold and hard. Adrian. You're not welcome here. The company is mine now. Just accept it and move on. Don't make this ugly. Move on? Mark, what are you talking about? We're partners. We built this together. I shouted at the metal box. We were partners, he corrected me. But you haven't been pulling your weight. Your erratic behavior, your obsession with that faulty code, you were a liability. I have the board's support. I have the investor's support. And thanks to the documentation I have the law on my side. Documentation. He had spent weeks, maybe months, fabricating evidence. Fake emails, falsified expense reports, all of them painting me as an incompetent and untrustworthy partner who was draining the company's funds. He had framed me for my own destruction. While I was working late, coding the future, he was busy stealing the present. A week later, my bank accounts were frozen pending an investigation. My credit cards were declined. I couldn't even pay for the motel room. The dream house? It was repossessed. I watched from the street as a moving truck took away my furniture, my books, my memories. The oak tree in the backyard seemed to mock me, its branches reaching for a sky I could no longer see. Within a month, I had lost everything. My wife, my best friend, my company, my home, my money, my reputation. My name was mud in the industry. Mark had made sure of that. I was a cautionary tale. A has-been. I ended up living in my car, an old sedan that smelled of fast food and despair. I would park behind a grocery store at night, praying the security guards wouldn't shoo me away. I washed my face in public restrooms. I ate day-old bread from the bakery outlet. One night, I was sitting in the driver's seat, watching the rain streak down the windshield. The streetlights blurred into watery stars. I was completely, utterly alone. I had nothing. I was nothing. The betrayal wasn't just a wound, it was an amputation. They had cut away my entire identity. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. A stranger stared back. Hollow eyes, gaunt cheeks, a week's worth of stubble. A broken man. In that moment, the despair was so total, so absolute, that it began to change. It's a strange thing, hitting rock bottom. Because once you're there, there's nowhere else to go but up. Or, sideways. The pain was so sharp it stopped hurting and started to morph into something else. Something cold. Something hard. Something dangerous. A single thought cut through the fog of misery in my mind. It wasn't a thought of sadness or regret. It was a thought of pure, white-hot clarity. They did this to me. And they think I'm gone. They think I'm finished. They're going to live their happy lives on the foundation of my ruins. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The rain hammered on the roof. And in the darkness of that car, a tiny ember of something new ignited in my chest. It wasn't hope. It was resolve. It was the cold, quiet promise of revenge. I whispered to myself, my voice hoarse from days of silence. They think they've won. But the game isn't over. It's just, my turn. That night was my turning point. I knew I couldn't go after them with anger. Anger is loud, reckless, and easily defeated. I needed something more precise. I needed a scalpel, not a hammer. I needed to become a ghost. I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I stopped being Adrian, the victim. Adrian was dead. In his place, a new person was being forged in the fires of betrayal. Someone patient. Someone observant. Someone dangerous. My first move was to disappear completely. I sold my car for a few $100s to a scrapyard. I used that money to rent a tiny, windowless room above a garage in a rough part of town. It had a bed, a hot plate, and a toilet that barely worked. It was perfect. No one would look for me here. I grew a beard. I let my hair get long and shaggy. I started wearing old, worn-out clothes. I became invisible. Just another face in the crowd of the forgotten. My only weapon was my mind. And my knowledge. I knew Nexus Innovations inside and out. I knew the code better than anyone. I knew the security flaws, the back-end architecture, the weaknesses in their system. More importantly, I knew Mark. I knew his habits, his greed, his ego. I started small. I got a library card and spent hours on their free computers, reading business journals and tech news. Nexus was booming. They had landed the big investor. Mark was on the cover of a local magazine, hailed as a visionary. Sarah was by his side at charity galas, smiling that smile that used to be mine. The sight of it made the cold fire in my chest burn hotter. But I didn't act. I just watched. And I planned. My plan was simple in concept, but required the patience of a saint. I wasn't going to just ruin Mark. I was going to unravel him. I was going to make him destroy himself. I remembered something from our early days. The company's core software relied on a specific, proprietary algorithm I had designed. I had built a backdoor into the system, not for anything malicious, but for maintenance. It was a way to access the core code in case of a catastrophic failure. Mark knew about it, but he was so non-technical he had probably forgotten it existed. And in the chaos of the takeover, he'd never thought to change the access keys. It was my skeleton key. One night, under the cover of a power outage in the city that would mask my digital footprint, I went to a 24-hour internet cafe. I wore a hoodie and kept my head down. I logged onto a public terminal and accessed the skeleton key. It worked. I was in. I was a ghost silently wandering the halls of my old kingdom. I didn't steal anything. I didn't crash anything. I just looked. And what I saw was beautiful. Mark was a businessman, not a technician. He had hired a team of coders to maintain the system, but they were just following the manual. They had no idea about the hidden potential, or the hidden flaws, in the architecture. Over the next few months, I worked like a digital phantom. I would access the system late at night, planting tiny, almost invisible lines of code. They were harmless individually, but they were seeds. Seeds designed to grow and interact with Mark's future decisions. For example, I knew Mark was greedy. I knew he would eventually try to cut costs by outsourcing parts of the server maintenance. So I wrote a piece of code that would make the system appear to have a minor, recurring glitch whenever a specific maintenance protocol was run by an outside vendor. It was a glitch that only I knew how to fix. It was a trap, waiting for him to walk into it. This was the hardest part. Watching them from the shadows. Seeing their lives get better while mine got harder. There were days I wanted to scream. Days I wanted to walk into their fancy office and just break something. But I held on. I remembered the rain on the windshield. I remembered the click of the door. I remembered the hunger. Patience, I told myself. Patience is the price of justice. I wasn't just watching the company. I was watching Mark and Sarah. Their perfect life wasn't so perfect behind closed doors. Through social media posts and public records, I pieced together a picture. Mark was becoming arrogant. He was making enemies on his board by being too controlling. Sarah, from what I could see, was starting to look lonely. The thrill of the stolen love was fading, replaced by the mundane reality of being the wife of a workaholic egomaniac. A tiny crack was forming in their world, too. And I was ready to drive a wedge right into it. The opportunity one was waiting for came 18 months after I lost everything. It was bigger than I ever could have imagined. Nexus Innovations was on the verge of going public. An IPO. An initial public offering. This was the big league. This was Mark's ultimate dream, to become a tech billionaire, a titan of industry. The news articles were breathless with excitement. Nexus Innovations set to redefine the market. Local boy Mark Harrison makes good. They had investment banks fighting over them. It was all happening. I watched the news report from my tiny room, a slow, grim smile spreading across my face. An IPO. It was the perfect stage. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. And Mark was building his tower higher than anyone else's. He was just waiting for me to push it over. The month before the IPO was a frenzy of activity. Lawyers, accountants, and investors were all crawling over Nexus's books and code, making sure everything was perfect. This was the most dangerous time for me. If one of those sharp-eyed auditors found my little seeds, the game would be over. But I knew Mark. I knew his pride. He would never let outside auditors deep into the core code. He would show them the pretty interface, the glowing reports. He would boast about his world-class development team. He wouldn't let anyone see the engine room. His arrogance was my greatest ally. I used the skeleton key one last time. This time I wasn't planting seeds. I was activating the bomb. I wrote a master script. It was programmed to activate at a specific moment, the exact second the company's stock was listed on the exchange for the first time. At that moment, when millions of dollars would be changing hands, when Mark would be on the floor of the stock exchange, ringing the bell and soaking in the applause, that's when my little seeds would bloom. The script did two things. First, it would trigger all the minor glitches I had planted simultaneously, causing a cascade failure in their primary customer service platform. It would look like a massive, unexpected system crash. But second, and more importantly, the script would reveal a hidden ledger. You see, I had been watching Mark's financial maneuvers. He was clever, but I was the one who built the system. I knew where he had been hiding small amounts of money for years, skimming a little here and there into untraceable offshore accounts. It wasn't much, maybe a few $100,000 over the years, but in the world of an IPO, it was a nuclear bomb. It was fraud. It was a betrayal of his investors. It was a crime. The calm before the storm. The day before the IPO, I did something risky. I went to a fancy cafe across the street from the Nexus building. I watched the employees come and go, buzzing with nervous excitement. They had banners up in the lobby, Nexus IPO, to the moon. I saw Mark pull up in a brand new, ridiculously expensive sports car. He stepped out, straightening his $1,000 suit, a look of supreme confidence on his face. He was on his phone, laughing loudly, playing the part of the king. And then I saw her. Sarah. She got out of the passenger side. She was dressed in designer clothes, dripping with jewelry. But as she stood on the sidewalk, waiting for Mark to finish his call, I saw her face. The smile was gone. She looked tired. She looked at the glass tower of Nexus, and for a fleeting second, I saw a shadow of something in her eyes. Was it doubt? Was it regret? Was it the realization that the prize she had stolen wasn't all it was cracked up to be? Mark ended his call, put his arm around her possessively, and led her inside. They didn't see me. Why would they? I was just a homeless man in a shabby coat, sipping a single cup of coffee I had nursed for 2 hours. I was beneath their notice. I was exactly where I needed to be. I finished my coffee, stood up, and walked away. Tomorrow, the bell would ring. And my revenge would begin. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The room was cold. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited. I didn't have a TV. I didn't have a radio. I just had my phone, a cheap burner I used for emergencies. I watched the clock on the screen. 9 a.m. The New York Stock Exchange would be opening. The Nexus IPO was scheduled for 9:30 a.m. I imagined the scene. Mark in a prime position, holding the hammer, surrounded by reporters and bankers. The ticker symbol flashing. The countdown. The smile on his face. Sarah clapping politely in the background. 9:29 a.m. My heart was pounding. Even though I was miles away, I felt a nervous energy coursing through me. 9:30 a.m. The bell would have rung. The stock would be live. I refreshed a financial news website on my phone. The page loaded slowly. And then I saw it. The stock had opened at $30 a share, right where they predicted. For a few glorious seconds, Mark was a billionaire on paper. Then, the news alerts started popping up. Nexus Innovations trading halted amidst technical glitch. Major system failure at high-flying tech startup. Investors panic as Nexus platform goes dark. I watched the updates flood in. My script was working. The cascade failure was crashing their entire customer-facing side. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was yet to come. About an hour later, a different kind of headline appeared. Exclusive, Nexus CEO Mark Harrison investigated for suspected fraud. Hidden ledger discovered in Nexus code suggests years of embezzlement. IPO in jeopardy as securities regulators launch probe. I sat on my bed and let out a long, slow breath. It was done. The bomb had detonated. I had not destroyed the company with a virus. I had simply handed Mark the rope, and he had hung himself with it. His own greed, exposed for the world to see. The next few days were a media circus. News channels ran the story 24/7. They showed footage of Mark trying to leave his office, pushing through a swarm of reporters, his face a mask of shock and rage. The confident king was gone. In his place was a hunted, desperate man. They showed Sarah, hiding in the back of a town car, her designer sunglasses not quite hiding the tears streaming down her face. The empire they had built on my ruin was crumbling into dust, and they were trapped inside. The company's stock plummeted to zero. The investors pulled out. The board fired Mark in a very public, very humiliating board meeting that was leaked to the press. The FBI started a formal investigation into his finances. His assets were frozen. The new sports car was repossessed from his driveway, right in front of the news cameras. It was a complete and total annihilation. And I had done it all from a windowless room, without ever raising my voice. A week after the crash, I knew it was time. Time to stop being a ghost. I cleaned myself up as best I could. I bought a cheap but clean shirt from a thrift store. I shaved. I looked in the mirror. For the first time in 2 years, I saw a hint of the old Adrian. But my eyes were different. They were older. Colder. Wiser. I found Mark at a dive bar on the outskirts of the city. The kind of place where no one asks questions. He was slumped over the counter, nursing a glass of cheap whiskey. His expensive suit was wrinkled and stained. He looked like a man who had been hollowed out from the inside. I sat down on the stool next to him. He didn't even look up. "Rough week?" I asked, my voice calm. "Get lost," he mumbled. "I don't think so, Mark. We have unfinished business." He turned his head, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. He stared at me for a long moment, confusion on his face. Then, slowly, the confusion turned to disbelief. Then to dawning, horrible recognition. "Adrian," he whispered, his voice cracking. You're dead. I mean, you disappeared. Everyone thought." "I know what everyone thought," I said, ordering a glass of water. "They thought I was broken. Finished. They were right. For a while. But I got better." He sat up straight, a flicker of his old anger returning. "Did you do this? Was it you? The crash, the ledger?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him. My silence was all the confirmation he needed. "You ruined me," he hissed, his voice rising. "You destroyed everything." I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "No, Mark. I didn't ruin you. I just opened a window and let the world see who you really are. I showed them the man who sleeps with his best friend's wife. The man who steals his partner's company. The man who frames an innocent person and leaves them to rot on the streets. I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself. I was just the messenger." He looked like I had slapped him. The anger drained from his face, replaced by a deep, chilling fear. He finally saw me. Not the old, trusting Adrian. But the man he had created. The ghost he had summoned with his own greed and betrayal. I left him there, speechless, staring into the bottom of his empty glass. I had one more person to see. Sarah had moved back in with her mother in a small, modest house on the other side of town. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had traded my love for a mansion, and now she was back where she started. I found her in the backyard, sitting on an old wooden bench, watching the sunset. She looked pale and thin. The glamour was gone. When she saw me walk through the gate, she didn't scream. She just put a hand over her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "Adrian," she breathed, her voice trembling. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I stood a few feet away from her. The woman I had loved more than anything in the world. Now, looking at her, I felt nothing. No anger. No love. Just a vast, empty indifference. That was the scariest part. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. Why? I asked. It was the only question I had left. She shook her head, tears falling freely. I don't know. I was stupid. I was greedy. He promised me the world. He was so confident, so exciting. You were always working, always quiet. I felt bored. I was a fool, Adrian. A complete fool. You broke me, Sarah, I said, my voice flat. You didn't just break my heart. You broke my life. You took everything. I know, she sobbed. I know. And I will spend the rest of my life regretting it. I already am. Look at me. I have nothing. No one. I lost you, and for what? For a man who threw me away the second the police showed up. I looked at her for a long time. I saw her pain. I believed she was sorry. But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't give me back my 2 years in that room. Sorry didn't erase the memory of that hotel door clicking shut. I hope you find peace, Sarah, I said, and I meant it. But I can't be a part of it. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. This time I was the one closing the door. In the months that followed, the dust began to settle. The investigation into Mark was thorough. The evidence I had planted was ironclad. He was convicted of fraud and embezzlement. He's now serving a long sentence in a federal prison. The tech king is just inmate number 47,209 now. Sarah moved to another state, looking for a fresh start. I hope she finds it. But it won't involve me. As for me? I didn't try to rebuild Nexus. That company was built on a lie. I used some of the knowledge I had gained in my years of solitude to consult for other startups, legitimate ones this time. I didn't need a throne. I just needed a purpose. I found a small apartment. A real one, with windows that let in the sun. I started sleeping through the night again. The nightmares of the betrayal began to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of completion. People often ask me if revenge was worth it. Did it make me happy? Did it fill the void they left? I tell them this: revenge didn't bring me happiness. Happiness was gone a long time ago. What revenge gave me was something more important. It gave me closure. It gave me back my self-respect. It proved to me that even when you are at your lowest, even when you have nothing, you still have your mind. You still have your will. Mark and Sarah thought they could take my life and throw away the empty shell. They didn't realize that a person's true strength isn't in what they have, but in who they are. They broke the man. But they couldn't break the spirit. And in the end, that spirit rose up and demanded an accounting. Betrayal is a wound that cuts deep. It makes you question everything, your judgment, your love, your very perception of reality. But a wound can also be a teacher. It teaches you who you can really trust. It teaches you to listen to that quiet voice of doubt. And most importantly, it teaches you that even in your darkest hour, you are not as powerless as you think. The hotel door closed on my old life. But I learned that sometimes, when one door closes, you don't need to find another one. Sometimes, you just need to build your own. And make sure it's strong enough that no one can ever slam it in your face again. Life goes on. The scars remain, but they no longer hurt. They're just a reminder of the fire I walked through. And on the other side of that fire, I found something I never expected to find again. I found myself. The real me. The one who doesn't need a perfect life to be whole. The one who knows that the only person you can truly rely on is the person you see in the mirror. And I'm okay with that. For the first time in a very long time. I am truly okay.